Before we begin, consider this. The average person can spend hours scrolling TikTok without even realizing where the time went. Some researchers believe apps like TikTok are changing the way our brains process information. Good morning, guys, and welcome to Flop Files. Today, we're diving headfirst into a silent phenomenon that's happening right behind our screens, and more importantly, right inside our heads. We are going to look at the hard science of endless scrolling, because as you'll see, what feels like harmless, mindless entertainment is actually causing a physical restructuring of how our minds operate.
Where did the time go? It's a question we've all asked, right? You suddenly snap out of a scrolling trance and realize half the evening is just gone. But researchers are now throwing up a massive red flag, warning us that we aren't just losing track of minutes on the clock, we are experiencing a fundamental shift in our neurobiology. The apps we tap into every single day aren't merely taking up our time, they're actively rewiring the neural circuitry that dictates how we focus, how we feel, and how we learn. So it really begs the question, what is actually happening in our brains during those moments of lost time?
Section 1. The attention contraction.
To grasp the sheer scale of what's happening, scientists use a fascinating term, cognitive divergence. Basically, it's the rapidly growing gap between the capacity of the machines we are building and the capacity of the human minds building them. And honestly, the contrast is staggering. Just look at these numbers. By 2026, AI context windows, which is essentially the amount of information a machine can process at once, are projected to explode to 2 million tokens. That means an AI will be able to instantly read and cross-reference dozens of massive books at the exact same time. But the human trajectory, it's literally collapsing. Our effective context span, the amount of text we can sustainably read and comprehend in one sitting, has shrunk dramatically. Back in 2004, it was around 16,000 tokens. By 2026, it's projected to hit a mere 1,800 tokens. That is barely the length of a single article. As machines expand their minds, ours are contracting. But how fast is this contraction actually hitting us on a minute-by-minute basis?
47 seconds. That is the shocking new plateau for human screen focus duration among knowledge workers today. Let's put that into perspective. Think back to 2004. People could easily sustain focus on a single screen for about 2.5 minutes before jumping to something else. Today, the median is just 40 to 47 seconds. And researchers point out that this isn't just a temporary dip because you're having a busy afternoon. It's our new normal. Our brains have fundamentally adapted to a 47-second world. We literally expect our reality to shift in under a minute. Which leaves us with a chilling thought. What on earth is happening to us in those 47 seconds to keep us so hopelessly trapped?
Section 2. The algorithmic trap.
To really understand this trap, we have to stop viewing short-form video platforms merely as software. We need to start looking at them as highly calibrated neurological tools, explicitly designed to exploit our most basic psychological vulnerabilities. Psychologists describe the foundation of this trap using a really brilliant concept called the sunflower seed effect. Imagine eating a sunflower seed. It's a super simple, low-effort action. It requires zero deep thought, zero planning, but it gives you an instant, tiny, salty reward. Because the friction is so low and the reward is so immediate, before you know it, you can't stop. You eat the whole bag. TikTok perfectly mimics this. A simple flick of the thumb requires absolutely zero effort, but it delivers an immediate burst of sensory satisfaction, transforming a conscious choice into an uncontrollable, habitual loop.
But here is where the story takes a rather dark turn. You'd probably guess that our attention spans are ruined by constant push notifications or external interruptions pulling us away from our lives, right? Well, the data shows something far more concerning. A massive 49% of our attention switches are entirely self-initiated. We aren't being distracted by the outside world anymore, we are actively interrupting ourselves. The restlessness is coming from inside our own brains. We have essentially trained ourselves to physically crave the switch. But how does this chemical hijack actually work beneath the skull?
Section 3. Dopamine and endless scrolling.
Let's look under the hood at the physical brain circuitry that short-form video exploits so effectively. It all comes down to the neurotransmitters that control human motivation. Here is the exact biological sequence of a swipe. Step 1. You swipe to a new, totally unpredictable video. Step 2. Deepen your midbrain, the ventral tegmental area, which is basically your brain's reward prediction engine, lights up. Step 3. This region floods the nucleus accumbens, your brain's pleasure center, with dopamine. Now, dopamine isn't just about feeling good, it's the molecule of motivation. It screams at your brain, hey, whatever you just did, do it again right now. Finally, step 4. Your brain, now totally accustomed to this instant hit, demands the next reward, and because the algorithm uses what behavioral scientists call variable ratio reinforcement, kind of like a slot machine where you never know if the next video will be hilarious or boring, your brain stays locked in a state of high anticipation. That unpredictability is exactly what makes the habit so incredibly resistant to breaking.
Now, if you think comparing scrolling to a slot machine sounds a bit extreme, listen to this staggering finding from researchers at Harvard. The amount of dopamine released upon receiving a like is comparable to that released when consuming drugs like cocaine. Just let that heavy reality sink in for a second. This isn't just some clever metaphor for addiction, it is the exact same chemical force driving the behavior. We are dealing with a neurochemical tolerance cycle. Over time, your brain actually downregulates its own dopamine receptors, meaning you need more and more scrolling just to feel baseline normal. This phenomenon is so real that it's now fully measurable in clinical settings. Researchers have even developed the TikTok addiction scale, mapping out 6 distinct components. Let's look at what these actually feel like in everyday life. First is salience, where the app dominates your thoughts. You're thinking about a trending sound even when your phone is away. Second is mood modification, immediately opening the app when you feel a pang of awkwardness or sadness just to escape. Then comes tolerance, where 15 minutes used to satisfy you, but now you need a full hour. This is followed by withdrawal, feeling genuinely anxious when your phone dies. Fifth is conflict. This is the destructive phase. It's knowing you have a huge project due tomorrow but choosing to scroll until 3 a.m. anyway. And finally, relapse, trying to delete the app but downloading it again a week later. Which leads us to a highly suspenseful question. What happens to an entire generation when their minds become permanently wired to this scale?
Section 4. The Tic-Tactonian Brain.
The answer to that question lies in what educators and psychiatrists are documenting in clinics around the world right now. We are literally witnessing the emergence of an entirely new cognitive profile. They're calling it the Tic-Tonian brain. And guys, this isn't just a catchy buzzword made up to scare parents. In academic literature, it describes a new cognitive reality characterized by severe attentional fragmentation, a state of constant sensory overload, and a complete intolerance for deep, quiet reflection. The human brain structurally adapts to whatever environment it spends the most time in. If your environment operates on the hyperfast, fragmented logic of an algorithm, your ability to learn shifts to match it.
And you can clearly see the symptoms of this shift popping up in daily life. First off, decreased focus stamina. Sitting still just feels physically uncomfortable. Deep reading is actively being replaced by what researchers call F-shaped scanning. Instead of reading a paragraph, we dart our eyes across the top, skim down the left side, and just hunt for keywords to get the gist. This constant fragmented processing leads to massive cognitive fatigue. Your brain is just exhausted from constantly switching gears. Ultimately, any task that lacks an instant reward, like reading a dense book or solving a multi-step problem, feels painfully, agonizingly boring. The modern brain is literally stripping the value out of sustained, unrewarded effort.
The real-world data on this is wild. A recent neuropsychological study found a massive correlation between daily use and self-reported hyperactivity. The study showed that people using the app for under an hour a day largely maintained their baseline cognitive symptoms, but those spending over an hour daily, they showed significantly higher current hyperactivity symptoms and were statistically way more likely to seek a professional ADHD diagnosis. The app's core design is basically mirroring and possibly directly exacerbating attention deficit symptoms, which really begs the question, who is most at risk for these permanent structural changes?
Section 5. The Adolescent Vulnerability.
The heaviest emotional toll of this digital heist falls on the exact demographic with the most to lose, young people. As highlighted in the research, adolescents are living through a period of immense brain plasticity. Their neural connections are actively forming, pruning, and solidifying based entirely on their environment. Because their brains are essentially under active construction, this high neuroplasticity makes them uniquely vulnerable. When their primary environment is an endless stream of rapidly shifting, highly stimulating content, their foundational cognitive structures are being permanently shaped by algorithms designed strictly for corporate profit, not for their development. And there is a very specific, fascinating biological reason for this. Between the ages of 10 and 12, receptors for dopamine and oxytocin multiply rapidly in a subcortical brain region called the ventral striatum. Suddenly, social validation and peer approval feel intensely, chemically satisfying in a way they never did during childhood. During these critical preteen years, the brain is hypersensitive to the exact types of social rewards, the likes, the comments, the view counts, that short-form platforms weaponize so perfectly. It's literally a perfect storm of biological vulnerability and algorithmic precision.
The long-term consequences here are absolutely crucial to understand. As researchers note, Repeated exposure to rapidly shifting stimuli may impair the maturation of executive functions such as working memory, impulse control, and sustained attention. We are looking at the potential long-term erosion of an entire generation's cognitive resilience. The Tictonian brain is fundamentally at odds with the patience required for deep learning. But amidst all these stark warnings, a final vital question remains. Can the damage actually be undone?
Section 6. Reclaiming your focus. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe to Flop Files and share this video with a friend who spends a little too much time scrolling. Now, let's pivot to the escape plan. The incredibly good news about neuroplasticity is that it works both ways. The brain that can be wired by an algorithm can absolutely be deliberately rewired by intentional habits. Here are the scientifically backed steps to break the loop. First, set rigid time limits for short-form content. You literally have to create physical friction to stop the impulse. Second, actively rebuild your long-form tolerance. Force yourself to read a physical book or watch a slow-paced documentary without your phone in the room. It will feel uncomfortable at first, for sure, but that discomfort is your brain healing. Third, take frequent device-free screen breaks. Stare at the wall, look out a window, let your brain recover without sensory input. And finally, transition from being a passive receiver of content to an active thinker. Our brains are highly plastic. They are fully capable of recovering their deep focus stamina if we just give them the quiet environment they need.
We are essentially left with the modern paradox. Our smartphones have built-in screen time limiters, the very tools designed for self-regulation. Yet the platforms operating inside them are continually optimizing to deepen our emotional dependence on virtual affirmation. Whether TikTok is helping or hurting society is still being debated, but one thing is certain: few apps in history have changed human behavior as quickly as TikTok, and that impact may be felt for years to come. Thanks for watching Flop Files.